Hello, dear friend. Welcome back to today's reflection. Today, I want to ask you something vulnerable, like we usually do on these reflections. Something that may sound small, but it carries a lot of emotional weight. I want to ask you this question. When you see groups of friends laughing or posting online, what assumptions do you make about their lives and by extension about yours? Now, let's be honest. This one can sting because it's not just about them. It's about the quiet stories that we tell ourselves in response, isn't it? And so, I want to invite you into this reflection with deep compassion because this is not about judgment. It's more so about awareness. It's about integrity, where we align what we value with how we respond. And it's about intimacy, about letting ourselves be seen even by our own hearts. So let's begin gently. I want you to think about the last time you were scrolling online or maybe even walking past a group in real life and you saw people laughing and embracing and clearly they were at ease with each other. My dear listener, what happened in your body in that moment? Did your chest maybe tighten a little bit or did your stomach feel like it dropped a wee bit? Maybe your mind whispered something like, must be nice, or I don't have that, or what's wrong with me? Or maybe you just shut it down entirely with numbness or sarcasm, saying that's just fake, or they're probably not even that close. Now, all of those responses are valid. They're not signs of brokenness, they're signals, information, and they're clues that are pointing towards longing, not failure. So here's the heart of today's reflection. When you see others in joyful connection, what story do you tell yourself about them and by extension about you? Maybe the story goes something like this. They're chosen and unforgettable. Or, wow, they're fully loved and I'm always on the outskirts. Or, they have something I must be missing. Now, pause here. Are these stories built on facts or on feelings? Because feelings are real, but they aren't always true. And integrity invites us to notice when we're living from a story that doesn't quite match our values or our full truths. So, what fear is living underneath these assumptions? Is it an assumption that says, I'm unlovable, or I'll always be left out, or I'm behind? And can you trace where that belief began? Maybe there was a time you were left out on purpose, or a time you needed someone to include you and they didn't notice. Or maybe you were the one who always had to initiate and eventually you just gave up. Now, these moments, they stick, don't they? They wire us to assume that we see on the outside of someone else's life, what we're seeing there is evidence that we're missing something in ours, right? But here's where intimacy truly matters. And intimacy, let me remind you, is intimacy. When we choose intimacy, even just with ourselves, we begin to see the real story that's underneath that pain and that aching. Have you ever looked happy online, but on the inside you were feeling lonely? Well, most of us have, haven't we? So ask yourself, do I really know what's going on in their lives? Or am I projecting a story that matches my own insecurities? And then I want you to flip that. What assumptions might people be making about me based on what I'm sharing? Now, remember, this is not to shame you. It's to humanize people's envy. We envy, right? No one gets through life without pain, and no one's joy erases your worth, because their connection is not proof of your lack. It's just their moment. And if this reflection has you spinning, here's a gentle place to consider beginning. I want you to consider writing out a story that you tell yourself when you see people in joyful connection. And then I want you to write an alternative version of that story, one that's kinder, and it's more curious and less final. Or try this instead. Say, I'm noticing my longing, and that matters. Maybe this is a reminder for me to seek connection, not a sentence about my worthiness. Or ask yourself, what do I wish I could feel in those moments? Maybe you want to feel chosen, welcomed, cared for. And here's the hopeful part, my dear listener. You can create those moments that help you feel that way. They may be small, but they're real, aren't they? So as we close, breathe with me. Let your body settle. And I want you to ask yourself, what am I learning today in this moment about how I relate to other people's joy? And what am I actually longing for? And what might it look like to move toward that kind of connection rather than comparison? Maybe it looks like reaching out to someone, not with pretense, but with vulnerability. Limiting the kind of content that pokes at our wounds instead of nourishing our hope might be another place to start. Or creating moments of joy in our own life, even if they're quiet ones, even if they're still becoming. Because, my dear listener, you are not behind. You're not forgotten. And you're not too late. You are a fellow human being with real longings, and you don't need to hide them behind envy or self-blame. I mean, you can bring them forward in integrity and with intimacy. Because the most beautiful thing about real connection is you don't have to pretend that you're okay to be loved. Thank you again for being here with me today in these moments. Thank you for being honest with yourself as you went through these reflections. And remember, their joy is not proof of your lack. It's just proof that connection is possible. And that possibility, it includes you.